Hello again, gamers and gamettes, and welcome to another episode of Not So Hardcore Gaming. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today I have friend of the channel, Blaze.
Hey guys.
Now, what we're doing today is the long-awaited Bloodborne 2 Part 2. We did a previous discussion where we spoke about some fan art we've seen for really good designs, and we briefly mentioned, for the particular one we were talking about, a story we'd like to see around there. But what part 2 was supposed to be is talking about what we would really like to see in Bloodborne 2. So,
Story-wise.
yeah, story-wise. Now, I don't have specific ideas myself, so Blaze will have a little bit more to say on the matter. So he is going to be the main event today, and let's get into it. Alright, let's get started. So, story-wise, I'd have a very simple part of it. I would love to see sort of, not the exact same story, but new lands where I still think we should be battling the Scourge. I'd like to see more involved with that, where you can find more of where it originated, and I'd love to sort of combat it more in the next one, because I think it was a very good concept for it, and the way it was done, the way the characters were designed around that were really good, and I definitely want to see more involvement with the Great Ones, because when it came to the first game, the difference between Prey slaughtered and then later seeing Nightmare slain, I really liked that, and I would love to see more combat against other Great Ones, as you only get two in the original. I think it would be good to see that. Story-wise, as I said, I don't really have a lot of in-depth stuff to talk about, but I would love to see a sort of a different part of the world of Bloodborne itself.
Oh, is it my turn? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I've spent a lot of time playing Bloodborne, and so when I finished Bloodborne, each time I finish Bloodborne, I think of a concept I'd like to see for number 2, and I'll list a few of the many I've thought of. So, the first one that I'd really like to see is like a what do you call them? Them number 2s that come before prequel. I'd love to see a prequel where like you're a hunter before the nightmare started, as like, you know, living through the Scourge as it becomes what it became, and you sort of turning into like Gurman or one of the Great Ones again, or, you know, having them multiple endings would be good. So you living through how that all started, you know, in the same area, but obviously without the new Yharnam. You're back in old Yharnam, because that's old Yharnam, that's where it started, and, you know, a couple of extra areas around from where the Scourge started that had been locked off, like old Yharnam. I reckon that would be really cool story-wise, with some new characters. You know, you don't have people like Alfred or Marta Lagares, because that's not come out yet, but like, you know, just Gurman when he was a young man, or that sort of stuff. I reckon that would be a really good storyline.
That it is quite a good idea. I do quite like that, and I think it would give opportunities to have a similar sort of setting, you know, the Victorian horror style, but you could really do almost anything with the areas, because with how bad the Scourge was, what you see is run down, and it's all because of that. It would be interesting to see what it would have looked like when things were just starting, and, you know, the settings were slightly different, and it could even involve other areas. So you could make whole new areas that you didn't see in the first one, and you really only have to have a little bit based around mostly Yharnam, and that would be like the main setting, but you can still bring in new settings from that and follow that story. I quite like that.
I mean, obviously, it'd be missing some areas like the Yharnam you start in, because that was created after after the Beastly Scourge started, and that's why you got Old Yarn. Hence the name Old Yarn. So,
Yeah,
and it
true.
would be, I reckon that's one of my favorites. Another storyline or a story idea that I thought about that would be really good is a great one has escaped, or the blood has been stolen and gone to another land, and it's been used and reproduced over there, and so the scourge has happened again, but in a different sort of setting, and with it obviously with a different storyline. So, you know, the blood's been stolen, or one of the hunters went AWOL and left Yarnum, went to another land, you know, something near the sea or in the desert, or I don't know, New York City. It could be anywhere, and has, you know, given them the blood and said this is great stuff, you know, and it's spread again, and it's a scourge again, or, you know, a great one's left Yarnum and based itself somewhere else, and has, you know, its blood's been found, and the scourge has started again there.
The thing I like with that concept as well is it makes it easier to tie it in with the game itself, and you can hear more about the things that have happened in the first one in this new land, and it could even have recurring characters or something along those lines. It gives a lot of room for familiarity while allowing a lot more conceptual artwork, everything like that. I like when you have a game and the sequel has to be involved at least a little bit, but there is so much new stuff you can do.
The one thing I do like about that idea, and I did think about, was you get add in different game mechanics as well. So say, you know, you're the character that stole the blood from Yarnum, and each time it spreads, you know, you gain a bounty rating, and hunters from Yarnum are coming for you to get back what you stole. Like, you could add new mechanics in like that. I know Assassin's Creed Rogue, after you left the Creed and went to the Templars, you know, they had a bounty. Well, not even, it wasn't a bounty system. You had just assassins waiting for you around corners, like hidden, and that was a really good mechanic. And you could almost do something like that with that sort of story.
I think that would make it a lot better because during Bloodborne you have hunters who just appear and attack you and you don't know why. I think if you did do something like that, it allows the similar game mechanic where you still have to battle other hunters like you did in the first, but it actually gives a reason as to why you're battling them. Because I think that is one thing the other lacks now, like, thinking on it more, is we don't know why we're being attacked by them, except for if you hit them, sure, you can understand why they attack you, but the only other one is the bloody Crow of Canehurst, who, you know, he just went mad and you need to take him out. But there are half a dozen other hunters who you know nothing about.
I think that's the premise. I think that's the premise of, like, they're all of them except for people like Jura, Gurman, Eileen. Those ones aren't blood drunk, but I think the premise for the ones that you find, say, Yahagul or the Forbidden Woods, like, you'll get, they're blood drunk, and I think that's the premise for it. Like Henrik, is it Henrik that you first battle with Eileen? I think it's Henrik. He's blood drunk. And the only one that you fight that, well, the only ones that I can think of that you fight that aren't blood drunk are the ones that are trying to protect, you know, Rom, that one fucking pain in the ass. There.
Yes, the most frustrating one you can verse.
She was, I found a little cheese, but it only works some of the time, is if you engage her and go out to where Master Willem is and then roll down off the thing, she sometimes follows you. So if you can run back around and keep doing that, she keeps falling off. But it only works some of the time because you got to get it close enough to roll off with you. Or you can charge attack her off if you're able to, but I never really get a chance. Anyway, that's not the subject.
That's a tangent.
And the other one that you don't fight because they're blood drunk is Madreus, because you have to kill that Covenant leader guy. I can't remember his name. He got the Ned Kelly helmet on, standing in that shortcut in the Forbidden Woods. You know the one?
I think I may not have done all side quests and things like that, or so to speak.
I'll show you a bit later.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, but so it could add, that mechanic could add a premise for, why the hunters are hunting you, why they're attacking you. They're not all blood drunk this time, which could make them either stronger or weaker. It could add more of you. It could be a whole thing. I haven't really thought about the storyline all the way through, because that's a developer's job, not mine. Like, I just think of a base point in the story.
Basic concepts of if Bloodborne 2 is being made, it would only be at a basic concept at the moment anyway. So
I'm really excited for Elden Ring. So I don't really think much for Bloodborne at the moment until that comes out and I can compare. But comparing Bloodborne to anything is like comparing,
chalk and cheese, as they say.
I wouldn't even say chalk. Like something really great, like a ham and cheese sandwich with like a puppy that isn't so great,
Excuse you.
It's like comparing, Friends to The Office. The Office wins every time,
Well,
but US version, not UK version.
But that's something separate.
Yeah. Anyway, so those are the two main ones I'd like to see. I haven't really thought. I've thought of a few others. Like the doll has had nothing left to do and wandered out, and they've taken the pale blood from her because she's got pale blood in her.
I would love for her to. I would love for her to still be, like she's followed out there, and I don't know, you happen to meet up, and she still helps you. That's what I like to see, and depending on how you do it, you'd have to. If she left, maybe she has the hunter who turned into a great one, and she's using their power, because I think that's how it was with the original. It was sort of channeling power from
Moon Presence.
From Moon Presence.
Yeah.
It would be good to see that. I would love for the doll to be involved, and then it would allow for it to be a new great one, and I'd love to see something around that.
It's not, that's another thing. Like, it can be added on any premise. My great idea was she'd escaped because she had nothing left. She wandered off into a distant land. They caught her, stole her blood. She died. You find her remains. The hunter that turned into a great one is now a great one controlling that land. You've come you've come from Yharnam to cure all that. I don't know. There's a whole heap of things that could happen, that couldn't happen, that would work well, that wouldn't work well. It all depends on how they execute such ideas.
What I will say in terms of like the doll dying, as you said, I kind of feel like it wouldn't be that she died, because if you think about when you go to the area that the dream is based on, it has one of the older dolls and she's still moving. So she's still alive. Yeah, but I think like she would still be alive, and maybe whether they use a resource of insight or whatever, you can revive the doll after you beat the first boss or something like that.
Did you know there's a nifty little note? If you angle yourself and turn the camera so that you can see inside the doll's head, she has eyes on the inside of her head.
Yeah, I have seen that.
And Master Willem. If you get close enough to Master Willem and turn the camera so you're inside his head, he's got eyes, used to have eyes lining the inside of his head. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah,
very interesting.
I thought that was a really cool aspect. Yeah, that's another thing. We could have a storyline where you play as a young Master Willem trying to line his brain with eyes, or a Master Lawrence,
And because you get sort of the insight, which is like the eyes, which. The clever note about it that I like, the inside, obviously, it's shaped like an eye. I always like that little detail with it, even though it's a bit obvious. But, it would be interesting to see. And then, because insight is the whole premise, the insight is what causes all of these eyes. It's sort of, as you beat more, you see more eyes in his head or something like that. There's a lot of room for that, and as I said, I would love to see recurring characters, so to speak, whether it's prequel or sequel.
See, I'm not fussy about recurring characters. Like, if they got rid of characters like Alfred, and even in the Doll, if they had no recurring characters but the story matched, I'd be happy. I'd be fine with that. But
Yeah,
if they had recurring characters but like younger versions, like a prequel, that'd be even cooler. But the same generation characters being somewhere else, I don't. Unless there is a genuine reason, I don't think it would make any sense.
no. As I said, it's not sort of like it wouldn't be good without recurring characters.
Mm.
I think if you had one, even if, as I said, as we were saying earlier, like the doll, even if there's one recurring character, I think that would add a lot to it, and it would allow for a lot more lore-based stuff.
If as another thing, if they have lore in a second one, if they ever do a second one like they have in the first one, like it's in depth, but you got to find it in depth. That would be really cool because that was executed very very well, and I spent a lot of time researching it, making sure, like having a look through the game, I did a full lore hunt game playthrough. I don't stream YouTube or Twitch, so it was just for my benefit. But I did a full lore playthrough, and it really opened my eyes to how the story was built and the premise of built. And I tell you what, Miyazaki did a very very good job.
I do love the use of lore, and like when I'm talking about a game, I'll always say that there's a big difference between story and lore, and what that Bloodborne does well, as well as really all three Dark Souls games, is it's not just story. There's more lore, and it's you discover more about it. It's always there, but you need to discover it. I do like that, but I would love to see just a bit of extra story with the lore. You know, with Bloodborne, you don't really get story much unless you go on the lore hunt. I'd love to see a bit more prevalent story along with it. Going into this, we thought it would be a little bit, a little bit more, but talking about it, sort of, we're obviously not nearly as creative as those who develop games such as this, and these are really things, ideas that have come up. I, as I said, don't have a lot myself, and I think part of that is uh, I haven't known the game Bloodborne nearly as long as Blaze has. He's the one who actually introduced it to me, so I guess I just haven't had as much time to come up with these things. But yeah, those are like a few things we would like to see, and I guess really the most important thing is that Bloodborne 2, we
Just like to see
anything,
that in general, really.
yeah, I'd love to see it because of how good the first one is, and one of the difficult parts of it when you have such a great game, if the second doesn't live up to it, it can cause a lot of.
Well, that's the thing for such a great game is the second one will never live up to how good it was, and it will never live up to the expectations that most of us have with such a good good game.
Yeah, and the other thing that comes into it as well is when there's such a big gap between the two, nostalgia changes your views
Mm.
quite a bit as well. And so I think it's one which could be difficult for them to really get right, but I think there's a lot of potential there. It's similar with Dark Souls. You know, they were games which were revolutionary basically, and they still managed to keep it going and kept it on the same level. And I think that can definitely be done for Bloodborne, but I think it's one that would take more time to really get it right, if that makes sense. And as I said, I just can't wait to see it, and I really hope it will come out at some point later, because just playing through the game, it's unlike any other game I've played, and I would love to see one with similar gameplay as it does have. And honestly, the story and the lore don't really matter to me as much as just like seeing more of the Bloodborne universe, if that makes sense.
I'm personally, I haven't got my hopes up. I don't think Miyazaki will even consider it because of how much he loves his original game.
Yeah, which I would definitely understand.
I will be finding him on Facebook and DMing a link to this podcast episode to him to make sure that he knows we want it to happen. Alright. And if he makes it happen, I'll kiss him. I'll be so like I'll do anything to make this happen.
I think it's a case where, or almost the only way you can go wrong is by not doing it. I think, as I said, there really is a bit of a difficult part of it, but with how good the first is and with how creative was on the lore basis, and all the designs, everything like that, I think any way you can go from here would be good. So yeah, so it didn't end up being as long an episode as we expected, but that's what we'd love to see for Bloodborne.
I booked a whole day for this.
And yeah, we ran out of things to say. But no, as I said, I also really won't get my hopes up, but I definitely do want to see a Bloodborne 2. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you for having me on here.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you, listeners, for joining us both today. And we hope you've enjoyed the episode, and I will see you next time.